Hello and welcome back to virtualmanc YouTube channel. This week is part 2 of our series with Azure Local. Last week we deployed a Azure Local instance on top of Hyper-V in my home machine. Okay, not any data center, not any crazy hardware, just my local PC which had like 64 gigs of RAM in it. So we managed to get that up and running with Azure Local. I'll put the video link to that in the comment section. Now we've got Azure Local fully configured, we're going to continue that in part 2 today. So in part 2 we're going to create a logical network. We're going to copy the OS disk onto the cluster so we can use it to create virtual machines. We're going to hook this up to Nerdio, and then we're actually going to go and create a host pool and just see if it actually creates a VM inside my Azure Local cluster running on top of Hyper-V on my home machine, which I just think is so cool. Previously we could only do this if you had data center valid hardware or free cluster, so you had to spend some serious cash or make some modifications to get it up and running. I've done this on Hyper-V on my machine, so I can easily rebuild this every 60 days and essentially have Azure Virtual Desktop for free, so I can just play about with the machines and stuff, and I shouldn't be charged too much for them. Really looking forward to today's video. It's been a great learning experience for me and I hope it will be for you too. If you want to continue to see stuff like this, please press the subscribe button and also drop a comment below in the comment section because it really helps me, and let me know if you want to do like any other videos or anything like that. But yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. Mission for today is to get this hooked up to Nerdio, create a host pool, create a VM, then job done. Alright, let's go. Alright, so let's just do a quick recap of where we were last week. So last week we deployed a Hyper-V machine as a local instance. Let's just flip over to my screen and you guys see what we've got here. What I'm going to show you is we have this Hyper-V VM here. So if I just, this is my Azure Local instance running, and then if I just go to Hyper-V Manager, launch that, we'll be able to see the machine running. Right, so what we've actually got here, we've got two VMs, we've got a domain controller, and we've also got this Azure Local instance running here. So you can see here it's got like 32 gigs of RAM. You can look at the disk and the NICs, so it's running a couple of disks for the cluster. It's got a couple of NICs for the cluster as well. That's where we configured Azure Local. So if you want to see the previous videos how we've done all that, just have a look at my YouTube site. I'll put a link to that video. That's where we finished last week. Let's quickly show you in the console. You can see this is the Azure Local instance in the console. We can see it's connected, so it's connected 2 hours ago, which when we'll fire this up, we have a custom location configured. Everything is looking good. Now, there were a few things to do within the Azure console to get this working before I could do anything. I'll take you through what those things are now, so you know what you need to do for your own environment, and then I'll walk you through actually how I've hooked this up to Nerdio, and then I'll show you how we've been creating a virtual machine. It is actually all quite simple. It's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, to be honest with you. It's taken me about 2 hours worth of effort this morning to get this stuff up and running. Alright, let's go into here and I'll show you what I've had to do this morning. So first of all, if you go to the Azure Local instance within your Azure portal, right, so if you basically go into here and just search for Azure Local, what that'll take you through this screen here, and then if you just click on all systems preview, click on YouTube test. This is the production one, right? So I'm just going to click on YouTube test, and that's basically going to take us to our Azure Local cluster, right? So this is what is actually running on the Hyper-V VM, which is very cool. So what we're going to do now is we're basically going to go and I'll show you the stuff which I had to do to get this working after we did the initial deployment. First we go to virtual machines. Everything needs to look okay here. So this is the virtual machine which I've actually deployed for test. We'll go through that in a second, but the first thing I had to do was set up a logical network. If you click on this VM's network, this is my on-prem network matched up to what I've configured within Hyper-V. I'll show you what you actually need to put in, and then I'll show you the settings which I put in. So basically what you have to do, you have to go into here, give it names, network network test, give it a switch name so it automatically picks that for you. This is the virtual switch name. We've only got one, okay, but if you had a instance where you have multiple NICs, so normally in HCI environments you have one NIC dedicated to storage, one NIC dedicated to VM traffic, for example. So we're just using one NIC here, so we've got that configured just for the compute. But then we'll go to the network configuration. This is where it becomes very environmental. You can either do that DHCP or you can configure static environment. For example, I just did 192.168.1.0/24. Whoops, actually no, sorry, I made the mistake before. So you have to select it here and then go to 24. Then give it the start and end IP range for your host pool, what you need for your on-prem environment. For example, if I go into here, into my Hyper-V Manager, what I've got from a networking perspective, if I go to Virtual Switch Manager, I'm using this external network, and that's attached to my physical network card. So that's why I've switched the 192 range, because that's my local IP subnet. So whatever your local IP range is, this is what you put into it, because this is the configuration which the VMs are going to get. Okay, so yeah, VMs are going to get out. That would be your router potentially, and then have your DNS servers. So they're probably your domain controllers, or if any other DNS providers, you put those in there. And then we have the VLAN ID. If you do use VLAN IDs, you can put that in there as well. Once you've got that, you just click review and create, and that basically goes ahead and creates the logical network. You can see here I've got my one core VMs network here, and that's the IP address that the VMs you're going to create on the cluster are going to be under. Now the next thing I had to do was to do VM images. This is the image that your host is going to use when we create it, right? So this needs to be held locally on the cluster. If you go here, here's one that I added in earlier. Really easy to add in. Basically, I'll walk you through what you need to do. It took like about half an hour to copy it down. If you go to add VM image from the marketplace, or if you've got a custom image, you can pull it down from a storage account or from a local share as well. Okay, so we're going to create it from the marketplace. We select our resource group, which is all our resources in it. Save image as, so we can just select like Win11 image, for example. Custom location, so you just select that as your cluster name. Image to download, so this is going to give us an option which download images we want to download from the marketplace. So we can just select this one here. You can see it's got a tick here to see I've already downloaded that one, but yeah, you can select whichever one you want. I don't know, 24HC if you want. Storage path choose automatically, so this will automatically put it on a cluster for you, so that's what we want. Or you can choose an alternate location if you wanted to, but I'd recommend just selecting default. Click review and create. That's going to download the image you need onto the cluster. But from the Azure portal perspective, what we'll do now is we'll actually go through and show you how we're connecting this up to Nerdio, and then we'll show you how to create a host pool, and then we'll kick off creating VM. Alright, back shortly. Now we've done everything that we need to do within the Azure portal, so we can see our Azure Arc or Azure Local machine is connected. We created a logical network, and we've also copied the image onto the host as well. You can also copy the image from Nerdio, so I'll show you how to do that. So now we need to hook this up to Nerdio. So I'll walk you through the steps which I did to get all this stuff working. So the first thing which I had to do was to basically add in the resource groups and the network, right? The resource group was this one here called Arc Enabled. So this is the resource group which contains all of my resources. So if we show you what this looks like from the Azure portal, go to resource groups and go to Arc Enabled. This contains a lot of the resources that you need. So it's got the Azure Local Arc test, right? So that's the configuration and that we have in there. It has the machine information in there as well, key vault, storage accounts, network. So that's the reason why we have to add in the resource group, because we want Nerdio to see the network. And then we've got all the local marketplace image stuff as well. Once we've done that, we link the resource group, which contains all the configuration for the Azure Local information, and then we link the network. You can see here we've got a separate link Azure Local network button. All I did was I went to here, and you can see here that's already that grayed out because I've already added it, but all I did was just press that and that linked to the network. You can see here that just took a minute or two to do that as well. So now we've got the network, we can select the network from within Nerdio. So now we wanted to create an Active Directory configuration, right? These Arc machines don't support Enter ID. For the moment we have to use Active Directory. Obviously they need to join a domain. Now in my configuration, that configuration was slightly different. In your configuration, you'd be able to use your existing domain profile. I actually had to create a separate Active Directory environment because I didn't want it to get messy in my environments. I noticed in production environments that might be different for you. Alright, so basically all I did here, I just went into created a new integration environment. So let me go to integrations, directory. You can see here I've got my Azure Local. All I did was add profile, go to directory, and then I put in my Azure Local and the Active Directory information that my Azure Local instance was using. Your Azure Local instance is actually joined to Active Directory, right? So key thing which you need to do, which I didn't do and I realise now I messed up, join the Azure Local instance to the same domain that your users are going to be in as everything else. Okay, I created a separate domain controller. The users that are managed by Nerdio, they're different. They're from a different domain, so I can't actually add my users that I need to. Just make sure you use the same domain, so we can just select that. Okay, so once I've created a domain profile, we can then create a host pool on our Azure Local. Okay, so let's do that. Basically all we need to do, we just go to workspaces. Now within Nerdio we have this thing called a hybrid host pool, right? So a static host pool is basically a host pool without auto scaling enabled. You'd normally get that if you import a host pool into Nerdio from native Entra ID. We have dynamic host pool, which is a normal Azure Virtual Desktop host pool with auto scaling enabled. That's what most people use. And then the new one that we have here is what we call hybrid host pools. Okay, so hybrid host pool is a way of building host pools onto the Azure Arc instance. Here's one that I did earlier just for testing, alright, but I'll walk you through how to do a new one. Basically all I did was go to add Azure Local host pool. So we'll do this one here. So we'll do this called YouTube test. So you can see the GUI is exactly the same as it would be for a normal host pool that you have. A resource group, I'm going to select this Arc enabled. Host pool, I'm going to select it as dynamic. Okay, so you can set it static if you want to and set a different VMs. In fact, yeah, I'll set it as static. Actually, we'll keep it simple. Okay, so desktop experience, I'm going to keep that as multi-user desktop. Here's where I select my Azure Local. For this one I've just turned off FSLogix. In a production environment you're going to need to create a local FSLogix server on the Azure Arc instance, right? So that's going to need a file share creating, maybe another video. To keep it simple I've turned that off here. We're going to create one host and call this YouTube tests 1. YouTube test, and I'll give it a pattern and a prefix test. Network, this is the network we added previously, so we select that and you can see there it's automatically selected the image for me because it knows that's the only image that it's got available for it to use. Okay, vCPUs, so we can get up to 8 vCPUs, so we're just going to select 1, 2. RAM, let's select 8. We can select up to, we don't want to select all of those, so we'll just keep it simple, keep it at 8. RAM type, static or dynamics. Difference between these are static, you'll give it all that 8 gigs of RAM. Dynamic, it'll actually start at minimum and then use more as it needs it, so we'll just keep it 2 to 8. And then if you need to assign a user to it, you can just add it in there as well. I can just type in any username I want within there as well. Okay, and that's pretty much all we have to do. So that's now gone on to the next screen. So we can see here we've now got this YouTube test host pool. It is actually creating that host as well. So yeah, very cool. Now what I've done is I've created one earlier. You can see here this one called Arc Test. This is a virtual machine. So if we actually go into our Azure Arc instance, so if I go to Azure Local, go to Azure Local and then go to our YouTube test cluster, we should see, if I go to virtual machines, we'll see the virtual machine there, so you can see it is running. If we go to our VM images, we can see the VM image that it was used to create from. And then if we go to the network card, you can see this is the actual VM. So just to prove this is local, what I'm going to do here is if I just go to my machine, we'll see if we can connect to it. There you go, we can then log on to that machine. And there you go, we are connected to that machine. If we just go and have a quick look, you can see all the agents. That's the Azure Arc Connected Machine agent which has been installed, and then we can also see the remote desktop agents which have been installed on there as well. Okay, so yeah, that's a machine VM running on my Hyper Azure Local instance. You can see the performance is actually pretty good. There's no delay in there at all. Yes, I've got quite a beefy host machine, so my main machine's got 32 gigs of RAM in there. And you can see here, just the config I'll show you. Yeah, we've got like 32 gigs, not 32 gigs, 64 gigs, which is, yeah, I've got a little bit left to play with. CPU just sat there chilling, and the disk as well. That's not really relaxing. Performance-wise, to me, it's been fine. It's not really taxed my system at all. So yeah, all good. So if we go back to the machine that we created earlier, you can see here we've added this hybrid host, and we look at the details tab, and it's basically the same as you would do with any host. It's created the config, it's created the image from the machine, it's joined to the domain, and then it's just installed all the agents and stuff. Okay. Now the only thing which is not working at the moment, as you can see here, it's showing status as unavailable. I suspect that could be something to do with networking, because I don't actually have a connection from my Azure network into my local network. I don't have that, so I suspect that's might be why it's showing as unavailable. So I can't actually log on and test this yet, but I'm going to look into that. So I'll do an update for you, but that's essentially all I wanted to show you, and I think it's very cool. The fact that we've been able to install Azure Local as a Hyper-V virtual machine, we've been able to copy images onto that, we've been able to connect it up to Azure Arc, we've been able to connect it up to Nerdio, and we have able to create a host pool from that, and then from that host pool we're able to create a virtual machine, a VM, on that Azure Local instance as well. It was actually a lot simpler than I expected it to be. Yes, it has taken a couple of hours, but this is the first time that I've done this. But if I was doing it again, it would take me probably just an hour or so. So yeah, very cool. I was worried previously about Azure Local because I didn't know much about it, so I just wanted to show you guys how simple it can be, and how simple it can be to manage by Nerdio as well, right? Because now I can manage all these Azure Local instances. I can go in here, power stuff off, restart, deploy applications, activate, delete. We can do auto scaling the same way as we could with a machine running within Azure as well. So just makes it a lot easier to manage. That's it from this week's video. I hope you've learned something. I know I certainly have. The reason why I do this is to teach you guys, but also to teach myself as well. The best way to learn is to teach others. I hope you found it useful. Please subscribe and drop some comments below. Just see how you found it, if you've installed Azure Local with Virtual Desktop as well, and let me know what that experience is. That's it for this week. I will see you next week. Bye bye.